I have HIV, I have myeloid leukemia, so it's better not to come near me. The girl inside the washing machine was in complete shock, and I just stood there and looked at this beautiful person in front of me. There were no bad thoughts in my head, I just wanted to get her out of there as quickly as possible. But she apparently thought she was about to experience a real escape. I immediately blurted out, "No, I can't just up and leave." I heard her promise herself to get out of that ill-fated washing machine and ask me to go into the room. I was shocked to realize that all these events had happened just 2.5 minutes ago. Nai simply threw dirty clothes into the washing machine drum and unexpectedly found a cat there. She tried to catch it, causing her upper body to be pushed deep inside. That's how she got stuck right in the washing machine, and it happened right at the moment when I finished playing a video game with my sister. I was just about to go to the toilet when I witnessed this scene. "Nai, what are you doing with this plane?" "Yunmo, I'm stuck inside. Can you help me?" What am I even doing? I finally realized this when I walked into the laundry room. Nai was wrapped in a large towel, and at that moment, a song was playing in my head. Something like some super hit called 530-something. What was I even thinking? I have a younger sister. I can't afford to do anything stupid. I shook my head, trying to push these thoughts away because the relationship between me and Nai. Just schoolmates. If I do something stupid after she gets stuck in the car, who will take care of my sister? At that moment, her pure smile flashed before my eyes. So sweet and kind, all these images swarmed in my head, evoking unforgettable feelings. Damn it. I suddenly exclaimed, "Don't underestimate the strength of spirit between me and my sister. Your heart can rest easy." I gave her friend a little push with my hand and pulled with all my strength. "Yunmo, it hurts. Be careful, Nai. Don't make such strange sounds." "What were you doing there anyway? How did you get so stuck?" "I was just trying to catch a cat." "She's inside and now I can't take a proper bath. Are you finished yet?" I felt so sad about it all, but there was nothing I could do. I couldn't get it to work at all. Is she really doomed? Okay, let me look at the instructions first. I took out my phone and called Zio Ai's voice assistant. "Zio AI, what do you do if your classmate gets stuck in the washing machine? Are you stupid?" If your classmate is stuck in a washing machine, that's certainly a good chance. But for the safety of both of us, a warm reminder from Zio AI, be sure to take proper precautions. I silently locked my phone. So what should I do if I found myself in such a dead end? Suddenly, a great idea struck me. With Nai skincare oil, we'll get it done quickly, just wait for me. I quickly walked away, leaving the poor thing stuck in the drum. The boy sank into a heavy silence. Complex emotions raged in his chest, but finally the last of his strength deserted him. He clenched his fists. He would have to try to get out of here on his own. We're all grown up now, and he knows a thing or two about life. Since he's stuck and can't move, the one on the outside can do whatever he wants, and all he can rely on is his own pride. It's clear that few can resist temptation. My departure should serve as a small umbrella protecting her safety. I've had enough, now I'll show off my dexterity. In any other place, she would have resisted. He usually carried some kind of weapon with him, just in case. If someone dared to attack him, he would fight back without a second thought. But now all the weapons were left in the room, hidden under the pillow before he went into the bathroom. Now he was completely defenseless. And yet he knew he couldn't lose his mind. He urgently needed to figure out a way to preserve his dignity. Soon a plan formed in his head. "This is a trap. No, Yunmo, don't you dare mess with me here." I felt so lousy inside. My voice sounded trembling and plaintive. When such a desperate cry is heard, the sound seems incredibly powerful. He thought it would awaken my conscience as a man. "Just don't think I'll rush to pull you out this second." There was also a tried and true option, rubbing my hands with my sister's skin care oil. It's slippery and oily, which greatly reduces friction. This will make it much easier to remove her from the washing machine. First, the cosmetic oil had to be delivered to the location of the rescue operation. Even thinking about that place was unsettling, a true lesson in survival. "I'm going to apply some skin care oil now, just try not to move," I said, although Nai was clearly anticipating some unpleasant moments. I could feel how nervous he was. He kept shaking his head from side to side. It seemed so awkward, just when he thought he had the situation under control. It only got worse. He clenched and unclenched his fists furiously until he finally spoke in a timid, pleading voice. "Can you let me out first, Yunmo? Please, I beg you, let's not do this here," I blurted out without thinking. What's the matter? Did she really think I was going to hurt her? I'm a gentleman, how could I do something like that? So I quickly reassured Naikai, I won't do anything to you. There's just a lot of body lotion here, and with it, you'll get out of this trap faster. Naikai, of course, didn't believe a word I said, thinking I was just making fun of her, and then she suddenly burst out in frankness. Yunmo, I agree to be your girlfriend. Let's take it slow, okay? Let's go on a proper date first. Okay, let's go on a date tomorrow. I'm so hungry. The temptation of Naikai's words was too great, but I wasn't stupid. The mouse was lying to itself, trying to free itself from the washing machine. But after she left, I said nothing. I just added, Mouse, let's work together, relax, and I'll help you get out of there. Just like last time, I simply hugged her. This position suddenly made the mice feel threatened. I quickly begged for mercy, uttering a litany of words more suited to a predator. Same old trick. What was she thinking? Whatever happened? I could only help her out of the washing machine to solve the problem. So regardless of whether Mouse would cooperate or not, I began to retreat. Mouse felt like something was stuck to her. She panicked more and more. How much had this cost? She didn't even consider a safer way out. She felt like she was about to give up. At that moment, her whole body was shaking. They were scared and hurt. They had already thought of 108 ways to get out and even tried to cut me into pieces. The mice were breathing heavily and coolly. She was in so much pain. How could she escape? How much effort did I put into it? After these words, her body trembled even more violently. She looked like a little firefighter trapped in ice and snow. The fear in her heart only grew stronger. No, I'm fine. My stomach hurt, the mice started acting unwary, and I snacked on milk. Finally, as her body became light, even greater power was released. We and the mice flew out at once. A pimple appeared on my face, and most of them burst. There wasn't even a hint of gratitude on her face. She ran to her room, grabbing something bright gold. Being a good person is really very difficult. I entered my room astonished, asking my brother, my good brother, to heal this pitiful body, and in the room, Mouse. First, she lay down on the bed. The electrical object was hidden under the pillow. I pulled it out and rushed to the door. As long as I dare approach him, I truly risk harming him. If this encounter plunges me into hell, I will certainly not be allowed to live to see tomorrow's sun. His thoughts focused on the door. Now he had only one goal, to harm him, but I suppressed that desire after a few minutes. I realized no one had arrived, which gave me a break. At that moment, he felt a sticky sensation. I think it was the scent of skin care oil. Then he realized. What was the source of the problem? It turns out he simply misunderstood her. To preserve her peace of mind, she ran out to me, changed her clothes, and flung open the door to the room. She returned in a flash, removing the knife and the pot of water and chili peppers from the pillow. She won't trust anyone, even if I try my best to help her. She thought I was just showing off, so I still had to be on my guard. Meanwhile, I was playing games with my sister. Every word her brother said could make me smile. I simply forgot about what had just happened when there was a knock on the door. Knowing this might remain a mystery, I felt a little guilty. I hope she doesn't leave because of this. I was just talking to my sister. I walked to the door even though my legs hurt. Opening it, I smiled with the most sincere expression on my face. Yunmo, I'm here to thank you, she said, and I blushed. I replied, that's what I should have done. Is there anything else? My sister was waiting for me, and the mice smiled softly. I said goodnight, keeping my cool and yet friendly. The kind and respectful neighbor had returned. It was hard to believe. Just a minute ago in the washing machine, she was using all sorts of fragrant products to seduce me, and now before me is a beautiful, pure, and generous girl. Good night. I answered this after class the next day. I just realized why Miss Hai moved out of the dorm. She was looking for her own place to live. And keying turned out to be just an ordinary towel for Miss Hai's washing. Someone stabbed me with a knife, causing my roommate to wipe his feet with Maze's towel, leaving marks on his leg. Everyone thought Maze was deliberately tormenting his roommate. Because of this, he was shunned and had to find housing off campus. After school, the mice returned home. She was going to change the blanket because the nightmare she had had the previous night had made the bed wet. But she discovered a small kitten running around in the new blanket. The boy didn't want it running around inside and joked that he'd put rice in there to catch the naughty pet. He didn't notice, however, that her long skirt was unbuttoned. She caught the zipper. Once inside, he covered his mouth with his hand, thinking this rice was making fun of him. The little kitten ran around until Reese was completely exhausted. Luckily, the boy didn't hate animals and didn't mind what was happening. And because his opponent turned out to be just a small cat, he relaxed again. but when he tried to move forward, he suddenly slipped and fell off the bed. He rolled onto the floor and started rolling around, trying to get free, but realized he was firmly stuck. Oh no, I was just lying on the couch, chatting with my sister. Suddenly, a frightening sound came from the mice's room. Curious, I approached, only to see a wooden cloak wrapped in a sheet on the floor. What the hell was that? I think the mice were moving. What's wrong with you? The mice made a strange night noise. The more she moved, the more tangled she became in the sheets. Seeing how cold she was on the floor, I didn't think twice and simply moved the entire bundle of mice onto the bed, assuming they were simply tangled. I should have acted like a band-aid and just saved her, but why did it take so long? Yumo, let me go. Hearing Mouse's scream, I quickly picked her up in my arms. I acted too quickly, and the mice panicked even more. I quickly threw her on the bed, hoping everything would be okay. The washing machine seemed to be working intermittently yesterday, but there were no more such problems now. Throwing it on the bed, I wondered, where should I get it? Nightsai, your backpack is too tight. The cat inside felt uncomfortable too. What if I cut the backpack open with scissors? Nightsai gritted her teeth. Now, in his eyes, I looked like a beast trying to pretend to be kind. She probably thought I just wanted to shred her things. I was comfortable committing evil. That's exactly how Naikai saw me at that moment. In fact, it turned out to be safe to be under the backpack. No matter how strong the wind blew, this sturdy structure was impossible to break, and I didn't give it much thought. Believing Naikai simply didn't want to ruin the blanket, I watched her carefully, looking for the right moment to break through. As soon as she stuck her legs out, I grabbed her. The mouse immediately became agitated. In a man's hands, even an ordinary leg could cause the most absurd situations, especially if I started acting unpredictably. It's so annoying with these mice. Don't touch me, she screamed. But I didn't even think of listening to her. Mouse, stop being angry. I've found a hole and I'll get you out soon. I prepared to free her jade legs, but Mouse froze in stupor again. Her legs glowed in the dark. If I hadn't dodged in time, I almost ran right into her. You have to admit, that would have been too stupid. I was a little angry. I was trying so hard to help her and she was completely confused. Finally, I just got out of bed, grabbed her leg tightly and lifted her whole body. You stinking thing, I'll finish you off. The mouse suddenly froze. It hadn't expected me to actually use force. No longer trying to pretend, it reacted with extreme anger. She instantly threw her other leg around my neck, catching me like a sharp knife. Both her legs tried to cut off my breathing at the same time. However, the mice clearly overestimated themselves. Even though her leg was wrapped around my throat, I easily held her other limb with my hand, completely in control of the situation. This move resembled a clumsy attempt to grab me with a 9-eared knife, but hanging on me in this position was useless. She couldn't reach me in any way, and next to me she looked like just a student. If you look like a stone statue, then just lie down and find a comfortable position. Stunned by what was happening, I took and threw her right on the bed. The confused mouse somehow crawled out from under the bedside table and immediately rushed to the pillow. Taking out an electric shock stick, she was about to punish me severely, but seeing that everything was settled, I quickly left. After pondering the situation for several days, I decided to go back and fix everything. If Naikai had been feeling uneasy all this time. Tomorrow I'll give you back your money and you can safely rent a room somewhere else. Hearing my footsteps outside the door, Naikai immediately disappeared. It gave me a brief respite even though my life was incredibly confusing at the time. Why would she go anywhere? After all, school was so close. Besides, the housing was incredibly cheap and she definitely wouldn't find another option like it, even though many guys at school were gossiping that she could live in a luxury villa for free. But the most precious thing here was the king of cats himself, especially in comparison with my gentle nature. After all, today was a great opportunity for me, even though I hadn't done anything yet. The next day, Liu Yanner looked at the dirty little cat and firmly decided to give him a bath. The little furry creature clearly didn't expect it was time for a bath. The cat hated washing and screamed desperately, trying to escape Mice's embrace. She even had to find a rope to somehow restrain the animal. She also hid the electrical appliance under a towel in case things went wrong. After undressing, she prepared to wash the cat. She was completely focused on her pet and didn't even notice how she'd soaked her own clothes. The cat, thrown into the bathtub, became even more unruly and began thrashing around the floor, causing the mice to frown. Why is this cat getting crazier? She thought, about to turn off the water to calm the animal down a little. But the next second, her own paws were tightly entangled in the very rope intended for the cat. Losing her balance, she collapsed helplessly to the floor while the cat continued to rage inside. Mouse's entire body was entangled in ropes and she was overcome with despair. The feeling was terrifyingly familiar. Caught in her own trap, she was at a loss, but fortunately the cat was only entangled around her legs, so there was still a chance of escape. It was a real no-holds-barred fight. What was I even thinking heading there? She didn't even dare move. After school, I finally returned home. At that moment, I needed to go to the bathroom. This cute guy was fluttering around like a flower in a garden because this mouse had no aversion to water at all. On the contrary, she washed her hands and feet every day, an ordinary girl who has nothing wrong with striving for cleanliness. I was about to leave when I suddenly heard a strange sound. There was a sharp crunch like glass cracking. Looking down at the glass door, I noticed a cat's paw sliding along it. It turned out to be a cat. He was clearly in pain. In this situation, Mice was literally dragged into the bathtub, and I had no choice but to turn off the water. I was about to start dinner and wondered if the mice were going to order takeout again. There was no sound coming from inside. I was a little embarrassed, though. Taking a bath in such conditions would have been awkward for a guy, too, if it had been my sister. She would have jumped out of there long ago, wrapped in a towel, and would probably have told me, "Don't interfere with the bathroom." So I just went to the kitchen to make dinner. 2 hours later, I discovered the mice were still in the bathroom. Would my skin turn red from being in the water for so long? I was just about to get back to my games, but my heart skipped a beat. Had she been gone too long? I knocked on the door and called loudly, "Mitsai, are you there?" No one answered from inside. Pushing the door open, I reached inside and saw white petals and chili peppers scattered across the ice slabs. Fearing that Mitsai might not be home at all, I quickly turned off the faucet and looked down. The picture was depressing. She was lying on the floor, tightly tied to the ground like a wild animal. I was terribly worried because it was difficult for me to even imagine what had just happened here. Leaving her like that on the cold floor was dangerous. After being stuck in the frigid water for a long time, I quickly squatted down and examined Mitsai, discovering that her hair and the ropes around her legs were completely entangled. This left her completely paralyzed. Not knowing how to help, I picked her up in my arms so she didn't touch the ground. Naikai's mouth was stuffed with ropes, so she could only mumble something unintelligible. Carefully lifting her, I carried her into the room. Without thinking for another second, I carefully laid her on the bed. Wrapping her in a warm blanket and holding her close, I helped her warm up, absorbing the moisture from her clothes with my whole body, after which I immediately turned on the air conditioner to heat. Then I went back into the room and took the scissors. It was the fastest way to cut the rope. After my return, she wasn't so wet. "Nightsai, are you having an affair with this group?" I thought, and cut the rope around her neck, restoring her freedom. She rushed into her little house, feeling as if she had stepped on an angry and offended predator. I didn't say anything, and I didn't have any words. First, I had to get her out of there. Her hands and feet were bound, and she seemed motionless like a sealed book. I still had. However, I had no idea what she was thinking deep down. I felt uneasy and quickly put my hand to her forehead. It seemed to me that she had a fever, maybe not critical, but still higher than usual. In the end, she had endured so much. No matter how many days passed and how many times it all happened, the ropes around her body had to be untied first. At that moment, she spoke through the night's terror. "Yunmo, I told you I'd walk very slowly with you. Could you be more gentle with me from our date to the wedding? I'm completely serious, don't lie to me." I untied the rope around her hand and stepped back. Thinking my behavior had already been too serious, I tried to calm her down. However, hearing her sobs and trembling brought everything back to me. Seeing her helpless hand, I felt ashamed. After all, I was still young and had never reached such a deplorable state. The human body really can be incredibly fragile. I didn't want to say anything, so I stopped listening to her, feeling that all the secrets existed only in her own little world. Once freed, she uttered a few more incoherent phrases. "Yunmo, don't judge me too harshly. I'm a student after all. I'll try my best and take good care of my classmates, okay?" Hearing that quiet voice, I simply turned away and walked away. I returned to my games, telling her to have a good rest, but suddenly Mitsai grabbed my hand. I don't even remember how I ended up with something convenient to weave a bag with. Lowering her head and blushing deeply, she said, "I have a classmate here. You don't need to go back to her." Unable to bear the tension, I felt my whole body tremble. I ran out of the room, moving my legs so fast as if I might die any second. My face was a little dirty, but I didn't go back. Is Yunmo a good person? I thought, stretching out relaxed on the bed with my left arm hanging down. A slight smile played on my lips when suddenly the sound of glass breaking was heard again. The entire floor was covered in bright red traces of the medicine. I quickly turned around and looked at her guiltily. Why don't you just pull the covers over yourself? I lay on the bed with my mouth slightly open, and the scene was too vivid. Over time, I even learned to behave more decently. Knocking on the door, I asked Naikai, "Can I come in to atone for my sin?" "You can come in." When I went inside, I brought her a cup of medicine. Naikai's face flushed with embarrassment. She clearly wasn't going to take any medicine after everything she'd been through. "Naitsai, your fever is higher than usual. You've been in cold water for so long, take your medicine and go to bed." She looked at the cup with disbelief. "You didn't put anything in it, did you?" After drinking the medicine, she immediately fell unconscious. It was as if her face had been obscured by fog the entire time, and my own darkened without a word. "Are you going to drink or not?" I joked. She carefully crawled closer and reached out for the cup. When the ropes tightened, the delicate skin on her hands instantly chafed. Every touch of the cup hurt her to the point of tears. Her skin was so thin and sensitive it could easily become scarred, which was the last thing I wanted. I went to look for bandages, but at that moment she suddenly pulled me along. First, I gave the medicine to a classmate, but now I saw that Naikai's arm was injured. Crouching down, I picked up the cup and began feeding her with a spoon, gently blowing on the medicine before lifting it to her mouth. After blowing twice, I noticed Liu Yanner frown slightly. If she didn't even have the strength to watch now, was I really supposed to do everything myself? I was a little confused. For a while, I didn't even realize I was doing anything wrong, just continuing to take care of her. You're stepping on the same rake. Or you just open your mouth to take the medicine, no longer fearing that person. She obediently drank the medicine to the last drop, and although it was bitter, her soul felt sweet. Her body gradually warmed up. After draining the cup, she quietly thanked me, still standing in the oil. "Thank you." After that, I cleaned up the broken cup, closed the door behind me, and left. The next day, during gym class, I was on the playground. Mitsai was playing ball with 3 of her former roommates. The scene reminded me of a family lost on a narrow path, and it made me smile. As for that neighbor who once wiped his feet with someone else's towel, he was still recovering from a foot injury. He was treated at the hospital and the wound had healed after a few days of rest, but he still had difficulty moving. Mitsai herself was clearly unhappy with the situation. Complaining of pain in her legs, she picked up a feather ball and sat down at the edge to rest. However, in the middle of the game, a sudden cry from the mice was heard. The ball tugged sharply at her hand, and Mouse, turning sharply, tried to bat it away. Her pupils dilated, and time seemed to stand still around her. All her attention was focused on the guy standing opposite her with reddish hair, whose dazzling smile shone in the rays of the sun. The mouse could see this was a long-term plan with just one glance. Luckily, she reacted quickly and slapped herself on the wrist. Then she was hit on the head and her consciousness clouded. A bright gun lay on the ground and Mice's eyes were filled with fear. Her face was flushed, her forehead was burning. She felt confused due to the high temperature. Seeing the wide smile, the flowers on the ground, and the cute dogs nearby, she suddenly panicked. They rushed towards us, wanting to express all their love to Mika. Now was the perfect time to show off the piano, watching the crowd rush towards us. I moved my lips, calling her name. Scenes from the last few days quickly replayed in my head. There was pain and sweetness and salt. The only thing he could believe in was me. Now I play basketball. Seeing the rain and the football field surrounded by people, I realized that some curious Mika from the past knows about my presence. Be at peace in my heart, I move very quickly, catching her with one hand. So tender, caressing, and scorchingly hot, my classmate Mika. I gently pat her face, checking to see if she's still awake. Yunmo, classmate. Go home and... I continued on to the infirmary. Once there, I decided to check on her and touch her forehead to take her temperature. She immediately took on a fierce look. Don't touch me. I was shocked and pulled my hands away. But I was still so excited when I saw Mitsai. I barely heard anything when she gave me medicine and tried to feed me. I tried to pour the medicine into her mouth with my mouth slightly open, but she pressed her lips tightly together and refused to comply. I started having problems, my head started hurting. I had to force her teeth apart, administer medication, and pour water over her, not at all like she later described. But having thanked her, I picked her up in my arms and carried her home. The dogs followed us, but I didn't care. I let them know that Mitsai and I were now living together. What was wrong with her? She'd taken her medicine, her temperature had dropped significantly, so there was no need to worry. I slowly carried her home. Suddenly, I felt a pain in my back. Mitsai had bitten me in retaliation. That hurt. Don't bite. However, I was no stranger to receiving such signs of filial piety from her. Last night, I couldn't bring myself to confess to her, so I came to school to do it myself. Now, I've finally given in to temptation. Tears streamed down my face as I was bitten for the second time. This Mitsai could be incredibly ferocious. Like a little child, she pinched my leg and became so angry that her anger almost started a fire and her neck ached with pain. Is she a dog? I was honest with her. I don't know how and don't want to talk to women, so I just pretended to be stupid. It was better to take her home quickly and put an end to this suffering. I wanted to go straight to the supermarket, but I had to buy groceries on the go. He wanted to buy an entire grocery store. What else could I do? Shaking my ears sadly, I realized it was too heavy. I ended up putting her right in the shopping cart, along with the pork belly needed to raise the cat. I was going to make braised pork with potatoes, chicken in yellow sauce, tofu, shallots, eggs, tomatoes, and mushrooms. I was so cold that I collected a whole mountain of ingredients, hoping that he would really come back. The dogs obediently followed the tracks. The situation was becoming increasingly surreal. My relationship with Mika was increasingly resembling a real romance, the kind you can't build in a couple of days. Many people find themselves broken. They looked like giant flowers in the sky. I already have a boyfriend and we buy food together. She sat down in the shopping cart, filling it with a bunch of things, and at the same time filled it to the brim with all sorts of snacks. After paying the bill, I suddenly realized my hat was missing. Standing in the cart, I blinked in confusion. Why were so many strange things happening around me lately? Luckily, it was just a cart. After looking around, I rolled it on. But since the cart was broken, I had to pay for it. Pushing it in front of me on the way home, I felt much better. I thought he'd start making noise in the kitchen again when I got home, but he suddenly went quiet. Lying in the cart like a dead man, I touched his head. It was still burning. It felt like he was just playing with me. There was such a lively atmosphere outside. It turns out I should have just not taken him to the hospital. Now he could calmly go home and die there because this guy wouldn't feel a thing anyway. Was it even worth taking him to the hospital while he was sleeping? Then I took a thermometer, poured some water into the bottom, and secured the whole thing in a makeshift nest made of rice-soaked cheesecloth. His temperature was hovering around 37.8 degrees C, a low-grade fever. He just needed to get some sleep. After that, I got to cooking. I really did buy so many things, stewed pork, chicken with mushrooms, but when I realized that someone with a fever shouldn't eat fatty and spicy foods, I changed my plans. Instead of stewed meat, I made vegetable soup and porridge. The worse someone feels, the more important it is to get them to eat. Having woken up the sleeping Liu Yanner, I handed her the thermometer and made this gauze nest, burning with curiosity about what would come of it. She was fast asleep and I was so scared. After coming to her senses a bit, she didn't explain anything but simply went out and brought the prepared food. Yunmu, where's the braised pork? Where's the chicken? He glanced at the vegetarian food in front of him, realizing he'd completely lost his appetite. I just silently took a photo. Didn't you promise to show me how to make this, and now you want to blame it all on me again? These thoughts gave him a headache again. Some people were very upset that I used these vegetables for soup. The temperature in Liu Yanner's room also settled at 37 degrees. She was clearly feeling better. I'll go take a bath, I said, but was refused. Taking a bath with a fever would have been suicide, and he'd been soaked in sweat during gym class that day. Feeling terrible, I could only allow myself to be rubbed down with a hot towel in the back room, promising to leave at the slightest sign of trouble. Having mixed up the rooms, she didn't pay any attention to it, and noticing the bed, simply collapsed onto it. At that very moment, she felt incredible comfort and peace. Fidgeting on the bed, she tightly hugged something large, soft, and very pillow-like. Hugging him, she felt the long-awaited satisfaction and immediately fell fast asleep. I only woke up in the morning. The first thing I noticed was the stifling heat. The air conditioner in the room was broken. I didn't want to get up at all, and my eyes were barely opening. Having done so much the night before, I didn't even think about the consequences. I wanted to continue sleeping in bed, so I pulled the blanket tighter around me. Suddenly, I felt an incredible softness. It felt like I was still in a dream, but I didn't care anymore. How wonderful it was to simply dream and feel free. I struggled to my feet, feeling incredibly angry, and a moment later it got even worse. Was this really not a dream? Why am I aware of all this? With these thoughts, I suddenly opened my eyes. Opposite me, the eyes were also open. There was a moment of silence as our gazes met. The reality was too overwhelming, and he, too, reacted instantly. Startled, I saw him suddenly raise his shoulders. Slapping my forehead and finally waking up completely, I blurted out, "Let me go, I'm sorry." "I didn't mean to, there was a moth stuck in your blanket." My face flushed with shame, and I started apologizing. "I did something stupid last night and even mistook you for an ordinary thing. I'm so sorry. I slapped you without really knowing anything." Touching my own flushed face, I understood everything. Even though I was beaten, I didn't complain. After getting dressed, I went to the kitchen to cook while the moth hurried back to her room, still apologizing. A deep sadness was written on her face. "What's wrong with me? I used to sleep right here." As she left, she covered herself with my blanket, and when she returned to change, she thoughtfully touched her chin and looked in the mirror. Suddenly, my pupils dilated with fatigue. I had often had nightmares about Mitsai before. I felt like she was haunting me everywhere, and only in my mother's arms did these nightmares retreat. But last night, for some reason, I didn't dream about anything. And I slept wonderfully, wasn't I right? Mitsai looked at my blanket with trepidation and hugged him tightly again, burying her face in the fabric. The familiar scent warmed her, and she knew she was right. Her face even grew a little rounder at the thought. "It's just unbelievable." When I ate, I thought Mitsai was acting strange. She lowered her head, refilled her plate, and then glanced at me furtively. The food tasted delicious in her mouth, but she was clearly ill. After such a heavy lunch, she almost mistook me for dessert. Returning to my room, I carefully erased all traces of our presence. If my sister had found out about this early in the morning, it would have been worse than any natural disaster. After school and a hearty lunch, Nai-kai lay on her bed again, her heart heavy. My blanket was put back, and a strange emptiness appeared in my chest. First, though, I needed to take a shower. She glanced at my towel and stroked it gently, as if it were a house ghost. It did indeed smell wonderfully soothing. It made her incredibly happy, though there was no point in shouting about it in the bathroom. Finally, looking at the wet towel, I still tried to remain steadfast, thinking that I was the bad guy, while Nai-kai remained honest. When Bai Ying mentioned my towel, I asked in confusion, "Why did you bring this up?" Nai-kai was speechless. A cold wind whistled outside. She was very worried about the draft on the balcony, trying to drive away strange thoughts, although this place gave her at least some sense of security. It was only a matter of time, and eventually she made her final decision. I was incredibly tired. What was that taste like? The smell of complete peace? As I carefully hung the laundry on the balcony, I lost myself in my thoughts. It was a terrible temptation for him. His hands involuntarily reached forward, and like a seasoned thief, he pulled down all the clothes hanging there. His heart pounded wildly in his chest. Returning to the windswept room, it took me a second to realize the sheer madness of my decision. I wanted to immediately go back and try to correct the mistake. But it was too late. Where were my pants? Where had they all gone? Nightsai was instantly overcome with guilt. "Don't even dare look at me," I silently pleaded as she turned to me. Shaking my head, I realized the things were hopelessly stolen. Quickly running to the basement after Nai-kai, I returned to the room like a bullet. Clutching my head and looking around in panic, my hair standing on end like a chicken's nest, I realized I'd had enough. I didn't dare put my clothes back, mortally afraid of being caught. All that remained was to hide my pants deep under the pillow and take the rest of my clothes off the balcony completely at random. My things were about to fall out of my hands. A strong wind was flapping my pants right on the clothesline. Mortally upset, I trudged back. Because of his tormenting conscience, Nai-kai could not sleep peacefully all night. Finally, with great difficulty, he pulled my clothes out and carried them into the bathroom, and he immediately felt better. The nightmares had receded, although a slight depression still lingered. Having spent the entire night without sleep, he had literally worn out all of these clothes. And although the clothes still provided him with temporary peace of mind, he already felt that it was not enough for a sound sleep. Getting ready to go out the next day, Nai-kai discovered that all his clothes were dirty and hadn't been washed yet. He was wearing only his pajamas and classes were just minutes away. Suddenly, an idea struck him. I have a little sister, right? Perhaps I can borrow some of her things since I woke up too late today. I got up a little earlier and headed to her room, irritated by the morning's mess and the strange behavior on the balcony. What were those barred windows for anyway, to keep wolves out or to hide from people? It was a terrible mood killer. Was it really worth making life so difficult? As soon as I stepped into my room, Naikai felt as if he'd been reborn in a strange home. The familiar smell of this room literally intoxicated him. Hey, you did your laundry yesterday, right? Why don't we do it together? Naikai said, sitting down on my bed and lightly touching my lips. Isn't that? Little girl, listen, I can definitely wear your sister's clothes. Give me one set. My mouth. Imagining Meat-Sai's figure and remembering his fragile sister, he became completely confused, but seeing the tiny things laid out on the bed, he involuntarily became at a loss. Your sister's clothes are hopelessly small for me. How am I even supposed to fit into them? They're a kindergarten wardrobe, no less. Looking her straight in the eye, I resolutely took my things. Don't you dare throw them away, and even if you don't wear them, I won't give them to anyone. I considered my sister a treasure, and all her clothes were sacred too, which is why the mice didn't even dare show their faces outside. And since she's stuck in the utility room with no way to leave, what should I do now? We need to come up with some way out. We still have time. I can go and buy you a new set. Put this one on for now. But the mice just shook their heads. No, the clothes you just bought aren't clean enough. They need to be washed first. Why don't you just give me yours? There was pure lust in the mice's eyes as they looked into the closet and saw the white shirt hanging there. Your clothes are great, they fit me perfectly, let me wear them. All I had to do was get my thing for her. Take it and don't break. Miss A took the clothes and began to change. I didn't have the courage to even turn my head, and Miss A's face was flushed bright red. Why is it so tight, although when I look at you? I still tried to act proud. Hey, do you also have moments of shyness? But I immediately stopped myself. Leave immediately. Without you, Miss A felt like a bug writhing in bed. She felt so good here, as if she were floating in the sky or splashing in clear water, although with every second her helplessness only grew. Having calmed down a bit, she got ready to change into her shirt. Frankly, it didn't fit her very well, and the pants completely obscured her face. Because of this, it was impossible to hide the weapon hidden on the legs. The streets were still dangerous, and without protection, she felt completely vulnerable. After rummaging through my closet, she found a jacket which she wore to school. But as soon as she returned, a pack of dogs burst into the house again. The hardest test was how much Miss A's personality had changed. She used to be gentle and kind, but as soon as she opened her eyes, she seemed like a real angel. Now she exuded coldness and alienation, and she did not let anyone get close to her. Those who hoped to see Miss A's smile again, capable of healing anyone in the forest, were disappointed. In the blink of an eye, she lost all her light, turning away from these scum with disdain. By evening, she was already hard at work thinking about her plan. I'd barely managed to launch the game when there was another knock on the door. There was nothing else to do but open it. What did she want again? I can't sleep, can we talk a little? Mouse's face showed panic and a deep-seated fear that was simply impossible to refuse. You remember what she had to go through. Beatings from classmates, knife and baseball bat attacks left a deep mark of insecurity, and nightmares tormented her every night. It was almost as hard as it was for my sister, who at least has an older brother, which means this nightmare should soon end. Mice's situation grew worse with each passing day, and at night there was no one by her side to protect her from the all-consuming fear. I was not at all heartless, especially towards her, and the sight of her shadow awakened genuine sympathy in me. Okay, come in, but you'll have to wait a bit. I have to finish the game mission first. There were no mice on the street, and she obediently sat down on the edge of my bed, already beginning to feel a strange discontent. She really didn't lie to anyone, she just subconsciously perceived me as a family member, like a mother or brother. In her eyes, I also looked too arrogant while I played games all night long, allowing Meat-Sai to fully experience the atmosphere. Looking at her, I quietly dozed off right on my own bed. I assumed it would end like this. I'd just support her for a bit and then send her back to her room. But I never expected that she had already ripped the fabric and completely unfolded the blanket, forcing me to quickly cover her up. There are no words, a real family idol. She doesn't love me at all, and I don't want to play the role of a man in this story. As soon as I sent Meat-Sai back, not even a few minutes had passed when there was another knock on the door. She held only a pillow in her hands and her face radiated melancholy. I'm afraid, I'm scared, I can't sleep at all. Noticing beads of sweat on her forehead, I realized that she needed to be brought to her senses, but I immediately dismissed the thought, not here. I'm not afraid of what you'll do to me. Are you still worried about me, Yunmu? Please let me into the room. With these words, Mouse suddenly blushed. Yunmu, I love you so much, let's be together. Are you trying to trick me? Do you seriously think I'm that easy to fool? Feeling unwell, the mouse collapsed right on the floor and began to be capricious, eventually settling down to sleep right there. My head was already splitting from all this, but I understood her perfectly. The nightmares frightened her so much that she simply needed to feel at least a drop of safety. But what was the point of all this fuss? Okay, forget it, come in already. Having given everyone a beaming smile, Mouse immediately flew into my room, where the blanket on the bed was already neatly spread out. She lay down on the very edge, her hand hanging from her cheek, and began to stare at the guy who was fiddling around on the floor, finally asking the question that had been hushed up for a long time. Yunmu, do you even like me a little? She desperately needed this answer. She seemed afraid of being abandoned again and desperately tried to cling to some sense of security. I wasn't about to risk open conflict with Mickey, but I still casually said, so what kind of plane is this Mickey planning on flying? Do you want to make a final decision on my attitude? Who doesn't love a good laugh? She suddenly said something that showed how well she knew me, perhaps even better than anyone else. Want to dance with me? We're adults after all, why all this childish hiding and awkwardness? Honestly, the longer she spoke, the more actively she rose to her feet, as if she had firmly decided never to retreat again. Her hand lightly tapped me on the head and I just clenched my teeth, feeling that I should never let her come closer. Do you know why? I just want to get to sleep, I said lazily. I don't know and I don't want to know anything. It's time to sleep, stop chatting or I'll throw you out. The mice gasped, it's all because you didn't promise him anything before. After that, silence reigned in the room. I was completely confused. What exactly had I not promised him? Had I missed something important from what he had said earlier? Or had he come again only to deceive himself? It irritated me beyond belief, but I had to restrain myself. Perhaps this was a sophisticated act of revenge on the part of the mice. In the end, I didn't even realize how I fell asleep. When I woke up this morning, I found Mice right in my arms. I slept surprisingly soundly last night. I wonder if he did it on purpose or by accident. Today was Saturday and no one could get a good night's sleep, but in this situation, I was no longer in the mood for sleep. Wrapped in a blanket with a cat face and with a disdainful expression on my face, I went to the living room to change. As soon as I stepped on her, I wanted to be in her arms for at least a little while, but I didn't complain. This whole nightmare felt like a real kaleidoscope of events. It was time to pick up my blanket, although the roll from the TV was still in the same place, although it had been forgotten about on the first day. When he showed up at my house, he simply disabled the entire system. And after checking the room with a hidden camera detector, I detected a suspicious signal. This meant only one thing: there was a camera installed in my room, and someone was secretly watching me. My younger sister Su Ling was far from home, but I knew for sure that today was Saturday and her brother. Well, in the morning I decided to just get some sleep. So I turned on the broadcast. Wanna watch me sleep? If you're lucky, take a couple of funny photos as a souvenir. Maybe this way you'll find the happiness you've been waiting for. But as soon as he opened the recording, his fists on the dining table clenched until the knuckles turned white. The classmates sitting nearby were shocked. What was Su Ling doing? The boy's face looked ferocious. He seemed ready to grind his teeth until they gnashed, spitting out, "Brother, who is this girl?" after lunch. Where did the mice go? My room fell silent for a moment, so I simply closed the door, hoping to finally get a good night's sleep. However, the mice were stuck somewhere in the bathroom, unable to escape. He had sketched out a comic strip called Fish Dream, and it had turned out pretty well, but as he pushed the door open, his legs instinctively tightened. His brows drew together. Why was the door locked? No one answered his knock. The mice were sitting right on the floor, trying to give our legs at least a little rest, after which we hobbled out to the balcony. When he discovered I'd locked the balcony door, he got a little angry. What kind of man was he? Even in his sleep, he continued to defend himself. What a vile creature. I was so angry that I made quite a noise. When I woke up, I noticed him stuck to the glass of the neighboring window. The window was unlocked and a devious plan instantly appeared on his face. Smiling slyly, Naikai climbed inside. The opening looked quite large, though the wooden bars divided it into several smaller openings. He chose the widest one and squeezed through. Why did this feel so familiar? Before, when he was having a hard time, he would simply walk straight to the door. But now, without a word, he slammed his head down hard and got stuck. Was he some kind of celestial deity? How could he have gotten himself into such a mess? Probably this time everyone will think I did it on purpose. But who cares? The mice sighed. In any case, there was no point in worrying about anything now. You're a good person, you'll be able to get out when you wake up. But he just waited for the moment, mentally repeating, "Get out of here quickly." The mice let out a disgruntled squeak, waking me up completely. Noticing the figure stuck in the window, I didn't even think to get up and help him. Instead, I simply pulled the pillow right over my head. I wasn't going to listen to this nonsense, much less save anyone. He was stuck there and he was incredibly uncomfortable. But I had no desire to help him. Whether with an umbrella or a pillow, sleep remained the top priority. Even when the mice were making noise nearby, causing only irritation, I did not get up and chase them away after their afternoon rest. I simply applied the bandage to his face, leaving him completely bewildered. "I'm so angry, Naikai, you should have at least a shred of self-respect." These thoughts made me so sick that I began to mentally correct her logic, although I understood Naikai perfectly well. She was just trying to get into the room through the window and accidentally got stuck, but that was the main problem. Naikai tormented me every day. Didn't I deserve to do the same to her at least once? Is that a lack of self-respect? Tell me straight. Naikai sincerely believed she was being slandered. Let her say it out loud, admitting that she has a bad character. She really did bite, and she was still trying to act like a virtuous wife. How could anyone do that? Her behavior had long since ceased to be simple, and all these strange antics only made matters worse. She was unable to explain what was happening, and the more she tried to justify herself, the more entangled she became in her own words, finally getting caught in this trap. But if you want to fight back, just respond in kind. "Oh, Yunmo, good boy, do you still have time for jokes? Hurry up and save your sister, be a good little brother. Your sister will definitely thank you for something later." She burst into laughter. My mouth went dry. She was so gentle, kind, and pure, just like a huge blooming bud. Why did fate bring me together with this selfless monster of a woman? Will I really fall in love with her in the future? Perhaps I shouldn't rush into it. What are you waiting for? Hurry, little sister, before it's too late to escape. Otherwise, the massive retaliatory strike won't be as spectacular.